I'm Shanna. If you're new here, I'm a Canadian medical student and I make videos to help pre-meds and med students overcome different challenges in the pre-med journey. And today's video, we'll be talking about a non-traditional journey to medicine involving a career change and some tips on making this. So today I'm really grateful to have Jill, a medical classmate, for taking the time to give us an overview of your timeline.
Medicine was not the most straightforward. After I graduated from undergrad, which I did it in medical laboratory science, actually my interest in medicine started in undergrad. When I was in high school, I actually had an interest in business. So I actually applied to business schools when I graduated. But I didn't get into UBC business school. UBC commerce is really hard to get in. So I was, for the first 2 years trying to, switch to business. But I discovered my interest in biology and sort of human physiology when I was taking undergrad courses in science. I really do like them. So it made me think to myself that maybe I should do an undergrad degree in the sciences. Because I feel like the business aspects, personally, can be learned later in life. But I feel like the science knowledge is kind of good to have while I'm younger and have sort of the energy and the brain capacity to like a sponge to absorb all that knowledge. So I did my undergrad in medical laboratory science, but my interest for business didn't diminish. I was still interested in business, so I thought to myself, what is a good field that can combine business and science? And then I learned about a program in biotechnology. So biotechnology is where I was in before medical school. I did a master in biotechnology. The program was at U of T called M Biotech. It was very business focused. So it really exposes students, just like me, with a science background, have an interest in business, to get a foot into sort of the biotech pharmaceutical industry. So I was in the program, I did my co-op, I learned a lot of business courses relevant to biotechnology field. And then I worked after I graduated from my master's. I worked for 4 years in sort of medical biotech industry.
I think a lot of people have this perception that going to medical school is very straightforward. It's just at some point somebody knows and then that's all they go through. But your path, which I think is super, super common, and I would say almost everyone, is you kind of thought medicine, but then you thought, and then you were like, oh, but maybe business, but then maybe medicine, but maybe business. And then you were like, why don't I do both? And I think nobody has to just go like linear. Everyone can go back and forth and then realize that they can merge. And I think,
and it was nice, but it got a little bit too comfortable. And I thought to myself, it's becoming a little bit static for me personally. Like I felt like at that point, I feel like maybe this is the time where I go and try for medicine. And I did. It's the thought of that medicine is like kind of on and off in my mind while I was working. I think I was waiting for a point where I felt ready for medicine. I think definitely during undergrad, when I graduated, I wanted to do business and I wanted to work. That was my goal at the time. And I thought medicine can come later if I am still interested in it after biotech career. So I started working in biotech, and then after a year or so working in biotech, it came to a point where I felt I was at that point I was actually quite frustrated with my work for a period of my time, because of the projects I was working on was really not going well at the time. So I got quite frustrated. I wasn't very happy in my job. So that year I decided to try to apply for medicine. And I didn't get in. But I was like, okay, that's, expected. And it's most people don't get in on their first try, so it's okay. I didn't really prepare. I didn't even get an interview. That was my first cycle. And then, so then I keep on working, keep on working. And then when it actually reached to a point where I felt like, okay, I don't think I'm gonna be my happiest self. I wasn't unhappy. I wasn't super unhappy in my job, but I felt like something was missing. Um, I am interested in science. I'm interested in the business aspects of science, but what was missing is the human interaction. Because I was mostly working in sort of R&D, quality improvement positions. There wasn't a lot of human to human interaction, which is one of the aspects that I really enjoy, that human connection. So my thought for medicine came back, and I started really seriously thinking about it. I started, volunteering a little bit more in healthcare. Before I didn't do a lot of. I think in undergrad I did none volunteering in healthcare. I was doing other stuff that I was passionate about, like music. I was doing handbell choirs. I was doing other stuff, like nothing medicine related, because that was at the background but not my top priority at the time. So I did nothing. But then while I was working, when I was seriously starting to think about applying to medicine, I then started volunteering in the hospital, like on patient wards. I felt I was lacking the skill of communication, of like comforting people sort of communication. Like sometimes you know how friends will come by and say, oh, they're feeling sad today and they want your comfort words. Oftentimes I just don't know what to say, and I feel that's a skill that I need if I were to become a doctor. So I then like volunteer at a crisis center to pick up like suicide calls and crisis calls, so I can improve my talking and communication skills, especially with people in distress. And I have to say, I enjoy myself so much in those experiences. It was a different kind of passion than the passion I have for business. It was then that I realized that maybe maybe what's making me really happy is not business. I thought I like business. It was interesting. It sounded cool for me, and I pursued it. I worked in industry, but I didn't find myself be at to be the happiest self. At one point, it was just getting hedonic, and I was at one point quite frustrated. I felt like I wasn't my full self. It's a weird feeling that I don't know how to describe. And then while volunteering at the hospital, I volunteer on the palliative care unit at VGH. Interacting with patients, talking to families, and I also volunteer for the crisis line for about 3 years. That's when I started thinking about medicine for 3 years, and it was I was so happy doing those things, and it was that passion is more like my blood is boiling kind of passion. So then I realized, okay, maybe I should keep on applying. So I applied for a second time. I got an interview. I was waitlisted till like the end of August. It was a really long wait list, but I still didn't get in. And that was the sort of the hardest part of my journey, because that year if I were to reapply, I had to write like the new MCAT. MCAT was so hard, especially I was working full time. Like I had a full time job, so I have to, for about maybe half a year, I was working the day, studying at night, and weekends I will also be studying and doing practice exams for MCAT. But long story short, I passed the MCAT and applied and got in on my third try.
What kept you going during that hard
I
time?
think what kept me going is because I really want to do it. if you truly like something, and if you truly think this is your passion, for me, the voluntary experience at the crisis line and the hospital really changed my perception. Because before I was kind of like, oh, okay, I can do medicine, I cannot do, because I already have a biotech career. Um, if I'm happy, maybe I won't pursue it. Because I wasn't that happy, I was frustrated at that point, facing that project. I started volunteering, and it made me really happy. And I realized maybe this is something that I really want to do. Um, so it kept me going because I know that medicine is really something that I want to do. And to this day, I think it's the best decision I've made. Medical school has been quite busy, has been not easy, uh, but I can say I'm very happy doing medicine. Learning medicine as a medical student right now. This is my passion. I can't imagine myself doing any other stuff.
I think sometimes people will sell you the idea that there was this one moment that made them know they wanted to medicine. But I think for me, for you, and I think for a lot of people, it's a lot of little moments added together. So, for example, your experience with the palliative care ward added together with your crisis line work, added together with some of that baseline interest you had always had of science. And I would honestly say there's an element of some of the stuff you found interesting about business, some of that strategy and some of that thinking. There's elements of that in medicine too. So it's like all these things added together make you feel like, wow, this is a pretty cool, this is a pretty good fit for all the different interests I have.
At the time, I wouldn't have known that my interest to business and biotech is not as strong were I not tried it, right? If I never go and do that career and try it, I would never have discovered my true passion.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because I did have an interest. I was really genuinely interested, and to this day, I'm still very glad I did that, because I learned so much from work, not just from a knowledge or experience point of view. I learned so much about humans as well, like working with your coworkers, working with your boss, your managers, working with clients overseas. Those skills are those soft skills are, you won't be able to get them from school.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very thankful for that experience as well, because I learned so much. It was just, at the point where I felt, I think I'm looking for something else in my life that can make me even more like myself and even happier.
Mm-hmm.
uh, so then I decided to make the switch.
I think what is good to take away from that is that although maybe logistically, time-wise, you could have gone straight from undergrad, from your science degree, straight to medical school, and that would have, cut down maybe like 6 years or something like that. But as you said, you were thankful that you needed to do that and explore that before you got there, because it could be the other way around. You could have come straight to medical school, but then wondered if you would have been happier trying out business. So you just had to pick like one of the two order. Like it could have been either order in which you were exploring those two.
Exactly. And Shanna, you brought up a really good point, because that was exactly my thought. Because at undergrad, I thought to myself that medicine is a huge commitment. And at that point, I just didn't feel I was in it for the commitment. I also didn't feel ready for the commitment. I also didn't know if that's something that I really wanted to do. So at the point, I had an opportunity to pursue business. I got into the program, so I went for it. And then after the program, there was opportunities for me to work, so I went for it. Um, and I kept on going until it was like, I think I've learned enough. I feel like this is a point that maybe it's time for a change, since I discovered that I wasn't my happiest self. I give it another try through, volunteering experience, and then it brought me here eventually.
Point from that is also, number one, there was no rush. Like
Mm.
you're here and you're still on this path, and it's like, you make it, there is that perception that we have to rush. And
Mhm.
I know I'm a hypocrite because I did that, but I think it's everyone's timeline is different. So for maybe for me that's the right move. And I always say there's downsides to that. For example, I feel like some of the things that you had already spent your working time learning, I'm learning those like right now as we're in medical school, which is hard at times, but that's okay because that's what I chose. But I think things like learning to work in a team that's very diverse and comes from a totally different background for me, I feel happy to be learning it, but it's definitely hard. And maybe if I had learned it before we had come here, that would have made it easier. But I think, as I said, there's always pros and cons to every path. But I do agree with your point on sometimes I think medicine is one of those things you have to really like it. You have to have like your thought, this medicine is going to be the place where it's going to make you your happiest, most fulfilled self. If you are having a lot of doubts, I think I'm going to put that point where I think nobody ever feels 100% confident that they're in the perfect path. I think because now we're already in it, I think you and I both do feel very confident we're here. But I think before you go into path, you'll never be 100% sure if that's going to be right until you try it. But I do think that if someone were like young Jill of undergrad and you were kind of feeling ambivalent about it, you were kind of like 50-50 and not super strong about going into medical school, then maybe you don't have to do it. You could still do it for sure. I'm not going to discourage anyone from it, but I would strongly consider whether or not there is something that would make someone their happiest self. They need to do that first, or maybe they might need to think maybe medicine isn't the path for them, and then maybe they'll come find their way around.
The key really is to listen to your heart, because we all have some kind of instinct or intuition, but society may tell you different things. Other people may tell you different things, like, oh, you should do this and do that so you can become that. But really listen to your heart, because your heart will never lie to you. And if you deviate from what your heart says, you're not going to be happy, right? So really live. For me, I think my life motto is to live in the moment and to treasure this moment, and whatever it is that you're doing, whatever this path is leading towards you, to trust that, to trust in yourself, and to really listen and trust, listen to your heart and trust your intuition. Because I definitely have lots of other thoughts or other people telling me. Because, for example, my friends who are about my age are probably in their residency right now. So at the time, people will tell me, you should just go for it right now. Like, why wait? Why are you taking a different path? Are you sure you really want to do medicine, or you don't want to do medicine? Like, pick and choose. But at the time, I was like, I really want to do business. I really want to explore biotech. Even if one day I do become a doctor, I think this experience is going to be really good for me. I don't tend to plan so much ahead. I do kind of treasure the moment and kind of see what kind of opportunities come up for me, and then go for them. I tend not to be very forward planning. Doesn't mean that I don't plan, but I don't plan too much forward. I like to be spontaneous and kind of see what comes up for me. And I made the choice at the time of that I think was the best choice for me.
I think the person that you were right when you graduated undergrad versus the person you were working at your job for 4 years was a very different person. You had evolved, which is maybe that's why, because maybe when you first started at your job, this was the best thing for you. It was the thing that made you your happiest self. But as we grow and we change as a person, nobody's ever the same they are. Like tomorrow, you and I would be slightly different. After this conversation, will be slightly different. We're always changing. And so what is going to make you your happiest self at every given moment is going to be different. It's not a wrong thing. I think it's incredibly a good thing. But our society, even as when we're young, when you're in first grade, people ask you, what do you be when you want to grow up? Yeah. People ask it in such a long scale. Hence, even maybe I probably was like that at some point. I was going to be a doctor. They make you think that at this moment you are able to predict what you want to do for your entire life. Whereas it actually might be more appropriate for someone to be asking, if you're in high school, like, what do you want to study in university? And then when you're in university, what kind of job do you want what do you want your first job after university to be? I think it's better to ask some questions in more short term, because only, when I'm in undergrad, I can only tell you what I want to do for the next 4 years. But I can't tell you what me 10, 20 years later will be the happiest self of, because I'll be a different person, you'll be a different person. So I think it's sometimes unfortunate that our society puts so much pressure on us to be able to, blanket tell you what I want to do for the next 30 years of my life.
Yeah.
And I don't think people intend to put that pressure on people, but I think that's just the way we end up asking these questions.
Yeah. Change is inevitable. Like, you can make the best plan in the world with all the details all laid out and thinking that it will go exactly as you planned, but chances are it doesn't happen as you plan. Most things in life will happen randomly, and you just need to learn to be adaptable. I think being able to adapt to changing situations and evolving situations is a really good skill to have, and be okay when things change.
But to summarize the parting tips for your transition period,
if you're thinking about career change to medicine, I would encourage people to explore first. Either it's through talking to other people currently in medicine, or volunteering, finding experiences, like actually immerse yourself in medicine and see if that's something that you like. I think it's very important before making a decision, because switching from a steady job to sort of a student status with no income is it's quite a transition, especially if you like have a family and need to support the family. It really needs to be well thought out. So to experience it yourself, and if that's truly what you feel that your heart desires, then just go for it. It may be hard, studying for the MCAT, but know that it's definitely doable. It's achievable. To have a good plan in place in between, like studying and volunteering and working. You may be tired, but that's okay. Give yourself some time to take a breather and relax in the moment, and allow some time for you to rest, but knowing that this transition time, this hard time while you're making the transition, will be worth it in the end, if medicine is truly what you desire, and don't give up easily. Because it can be, if for the first 1 or 2 tries that you don't get in, it can be disheartening, but don't give up, if that's what you really truly desire.
the ones where you said like, but you haven't thought about, oh wow, I did that. I think when you're in it and you're going forward, you don't know if you'll get through it, but when you look back, it's almost like you forgot how hard it was. I don't want to discredit the experience because it was difficult, right? But when you like look back and we're like retrospectively, all the dots line up and it made sense. But in the moment, it looks like it doesn't make sense.
To know who you are, to understand yourself, and you can only understand or know who you are and what your passion is by by experiencing. Because only when you face different situations, when you face different people, different scenarios, then you will have reactions to those scenarios and reaction. You will have a genuine reaction, be like, hey, I really enjoy this, or no, I don't enjoy myself at all. You'll never find out by sitting there and imagining it.
Yeah.
Because your brain can trick yourself, but experience won't trick you. Like, your reactions are genuine. So when you like face a patient with a family and you have a genuine reaction, be like, I'm really enjoying that interaction that I just had with them. Or you can have a very genuine reaction, be like, I find myself to be very awkward. I don't like that. Those are both genuine, and they can tell you so much about yourself, and then guide you in your decision making, into pursuing medicine, or what kind of medicine that you want to pursue. If you think medicine is what you do, there are also so much diversity and variety in medicine that you can choose. But first and foremost, medicine is a general field. You will want to experience them before committing to it. or else, you know, that's such a big commitment that you're making, and it takes a long time. Medicine is a long journey.
Thank you again, Jill, so much for sharing your stories. And I genuinely believe that there's going to be someone watching this that learns from your story, whether or not they're trying to transition from their career, or at least there's someone who was at that phase where they were kind of a little bit ambivalent about medicine. I hope thank you to everyone who's watching. Drop a comment if there was something that really something about that Jill said that really struck, you know, really resonated with you, or if you have like a particular question, I can whip it over to Jill. I don't really feel like you left a lot of questions because you really shared a lot, but if anyone wants to share and have questions, feel free to leave them in the comments.